why don't we start talking about your grandparents? It sounds like you've been in Ackworth forever, your family,
Yes,
for a long, long
a
time.
long, long time.
And I was just fascinated with your maternal grandmother, for instance,
Hmm.
that she went to Madam
C.J.
Walker's.
Walker,
Talk about that, what you know about her. And her name was, let's say,
Maddie Mae.
Maddie Logan Rice.
Uh-huh.
Talk about her.
I did not know her.
Okay.
I never knew her. She died, like I said, my aunt was 12,
Uh-huh.
so I wasn't even born at the time.
Uh-huh.
But my aunt told me that she went to the school at
Uh-huh.
Madam C.J. Walker School in Atlanta, where
Oh, in
she,
Atlanta.
yes, where she became a cosmetologist.
Uh-huh.
She used to do hair in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the extent. She used to travel a lot.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and she died at the age of 48 after having 14 children.
Mm.
Yes, in 1944, she died at the age of 48.
Wow. Well, 14 children is probably enough of a reason.
Well, well, back then she started at 13, so
Wow.
they had them young. They got married and had children young at that time.
Uh-huh. And then, let's see, her husband was Thomas Lee
Thomas Lee Rice.
And he worked for the city too. What, did you know him?
He was the only one I knew, and
Okay.
I was probably about 8 when he died
Uh-huh.
in 1961.
Okay.
Yes.
And he was the one that was born in
1890, yes. I have that birth certificate that my mother had, and I just only realized going through her paperwork this year that I realized who my great grandparents was, his parents,
Uh-huh.
Singleton and Mary Jane Vernon Rice.
Do you know anything about them?
No,
Just-
and my aunt knew very little about them as well.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But we have a cousin. She's doing family ancestry, and so she's getting a lot of information together for us.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. And let's see, Thomas Lee Rice. We'll talk about what he did for the city.
Well, he was a street sweeper
Uh-huh.
for the city of Ackworth. My aunt tells me.
Meaning he does it, but as walking down the street with a broom, or?
No, they used to have this piece of equipment that used to go through the city
Uh-huh.
and sweep the whole roads
So
off.
it's like driving a truck through
Like
it?
driving a truck or a tractor
Uh-huh.
to sweep off the streets.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and there was a lot of, not as much pavement as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly dirt roads and everything back then. But he did that, and he also would collect the mail when the trains would come through
Uh-huh.
and drop the mail, I guess, in a certain spot, and he would go retrieve the mail and take it to the destination.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
And meaning the post office?
I don't know whether the post office was around back then,
Okay.
but wherever they could pick up the mail and assort it, that's
Uh-huh.
where he would take it.
Uh-huh. So I guess on unpaved roads, it's like he's filling in the ruts, the equivalent to a pothole
Yes.
after the rains and what have you,
Right.
just to keep the street good and level for the buggies and whatever are going by,
Right.
early cars.
Yeah, you see sometimes trucks coming through and spray for mosquitoes,
Uh-huh.
and when I see that, I think about, is that what he used to do? Go through like that
Uh-huh.
and sweep the streets.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about your mother a little bit, Corey Rice Griffin.
Yes. Now I can talk about my mother a lot.
Okay, tell us about her.
Okay, because she was my shero.
You said that.
Yeah, she was a hard taskmaster to grow up under.
But still a shero.
Shero, yes. She made me who I am today. Of course, as a child, I didn't understand it. She was hard, I thought. But I realized it was because she loved us and she was trying to protect us, as we grew older and became adults. She was getting us ready for what was in front of us. Yes. Because she grew up, she was born in 1921.
Okay.
Yes. And so she died in 1999. So she probably had seen a lot of things, experienced a lot of things.
I would think.
Yes. And she had 8 children herself.
Wow.
She had the most of all of her siblings. It was 8 of us.
Wow. Where were you among the 8?
I was number 6,
Okay.
actually. I had an older sister. She was the oldest of everyone, but I never knew her because when I was born in 1953, she died a month later,
Oh my goodness.
and she was 14. Yes.
What happened?
It was the disease back then, 1953. Probably could have been treated today, but because of the circumstances, you know, segregation, she did not get the treatment she should have had in order to survive. First jaundice, my aunt tell me, then pneumonia, then double pneumonia, and it just kept on going. But she was sick for about 2 years before she died.
So there was, well, of course, Kennestone was in existence that time and was segregated, but there was a black ward. In
That's
the
right.
bottom.
And we just didn't then or now get the care like we should.
So they wouldn't have even thought about taking her to Kennestone?
She did go.
Did
She
she?
had a doctor, and I can't remember the name of her doctor, but whatever reason, she did not make it.
Yeah.
And no one can really say. I was, like I said, I was 1 month old when she died. And that's just something they didn't talk about a whole lot.
Wow.
I know my aunt told me she was the first one to change her diaper when she was born. She was the first one to change it when she died because they used to keep, you know, people in their homes for viewing and before the funeral. Yes.
When you say your aunt, who are you talking
The
about?
Florence Bates, the
Florence,
one that's
okay.
still alive. She's the one who filling me in on the things that I never knew.
Oh, really?
Yes, some things that I never knew. She tells me
About the family?
about the family, yes.
Wow. Well, it was a hard time.
It was hard times, yes, and you just go on and you live and you just learn and you try to make it better for the next generation.
Well, talk a little bit about your mother and what she did for a living.
Okay, from the time I was small, my mother was a domestic worker. She would work in people's homes, raising their children, cleaning their homes, cooking for them. She was one of the best cooks I ever known, and still today. She will cook. And she worked for Dot and Joe Keno right here in Ackworth. And even when they moved to Marietta, to Maryland, Marriage Drive, off on Kennesaw Avenue, she went to work for them there. All the kids. And once she left them, probably around, can't say exactly what year it was she left them, but then she started working at Kennestone Hospital around 74, because she worked at Kennestone Hospital for about 10 years, and she retired when my son was born in 1984. And she took care of him for 2 years while I was working until I got him a babysitter. Yeah, so, and then she also went to work for Ackworth Elementary, the old Ackworth Elementary, in the cafeteria. So she was always working and providing for us. And I think anything she would have asked the Kenos for that we needed, they would give it to her. So I never felt like we was poor. I did not have to work until I graduated from high school because I played sports. And also my father worked at Lockheed. He retired from Lockheed. So I guess you say we was a middle class black family.
Your father, Willis E. Griffin,
Willis E. Griffin.
and in the Navy in World War One.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What year was he born?
He was born in 1920. I was 25.
Nin-
My mother was 4 years older than him.
Wait a minute.
She was born in 21.
Okay, so he was in World War II then, I guess.
Oh, I said World War II. Yes,
Okay.
of course. I said World War
I
One.
was going to
Yes.
you had a very old father.
Oh no, World War II.
Okay.
World.
And that makes a whole lot more sense with the Navy about
Yes.
World War II. What did he do in the Navy?
He
It
worked.
was still very segregated.
Yes, it definitely was. I should have bought a picture of him from there. He basically, just did whatever they told him to do. They did a lot of the kitchen work, peeling potatoes and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever fought in the war.
I don't think there were any black sailors,
Mm-hmm.
operating the guns or anything.
Right.
I think they were mainly doing kitchen work.
Right. That's yes. I remember a story about them cutting potatoes, and they had access to guns though.
Sure, they went through. The
Yes,
basic
they went
training.
through the basic training and everything. Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the great ironies of American history is we fought a war for democracy with a segregated military
Yes.
in World War II, but I think also that had a lot to do with the civil rights movement that came afterwards, that contradiction between what we believed in, what we fought for as a country, and
Right.
what we practiced.
Right. But even then, we was there fighting for our country,
Right.
even though sometimes it didn't appear that our country was fighting for us.
Exactly. Okay, so so he goes to work for Lockheed. Lockheed came here in '51.
Yes. So he retired after 36 years of service in 1989. So if you back that up, it was still 1950 something. Yes.
Yeah.
36 years
What
of
did
service.
he do at Lockheed?
He was a wingman. Yes, and I have pictures of that too that I did not bring. That they was working on the wing. They used to call him Birdman. Yes,
Okay, because he was hanging out.
hanging out on the wings of the plane.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure cleaning them.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. Any other memories of your parents? If your mother, was hard on you, what would she say to you that don't do so and so because or?
Well, I guess you wouldn't. She raised us right. She had to be, even though my father was in the household, my mother was the firm hand. I can only recall my father whooping me once, but my mother many times. She would tell us what to do, and she shouldn't have to tell us more than once. Back then, if they tell you to do something, you did it, with no questions asked. But I just remember her used to tell us that once I have a sister under me, 2 years under me, she used to tell us when we got in our teenage years that even if we let a boy kiss us, we would get pregnant. We're like, okay, and we believed that.
Okay.
We really did. But we all have had our chores to do. We had to make our grades. It was a necessity that we graduate from high school. Yes. So if you look at it from outside, you would say, no, that wasn't hard. That was being a parent. And like I said, I do understand that now. She made me and my sister go to Sunday school every Sunday morning. We will walk from our house on School Street over to Taylor Street, where the church is located, even today.
It's not that far away.
Not that far of a walk, but it was good. She made us go to Sunday school, and I'm thankful for that today because Deacon Reverend Durr died at 98. He taught us in Sunday school. He was our Sunday school teacher. He was our Sunday school superintendent. He was just our friend. Yes, friend to my mother. She trusted him, with us.
There's a plaque just outside the door coming into the council chamber to Amos Dewar.
Yes, well,
A citizenship award.
right. Anyone deserve it, he does. Yes.
I did get a chance to meet him and interview him. I think probably back in the early 90s, maybe.
Right.
So,
But my mother, she was, like I said, she was just uh, a very smart woman, even with a third grade education. Um, to the fact that even when she died, we had 3 houses paid for and property here in Ackworth.
3 houses.
3 houses paid. 2 still stands today, and the one when I was born, the one on Moon Street, right across from Roberts Elementary, now is the parking lot of the Senior Citizen Building.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first house.
Okay.
And the current house where I'm living now was my parents' home that they built early 60s. Yes.
Okay. Let's see, I guess your mother, why did she only have 3 grades? She had to go to work? Or
Yes, of course, she had to go to work.
at age 8, or?
She worked. She was one of the older daughters. I didn't know 7 of her siblings. I only know, 7, including my mother. I think I knew 8. But the others actually had died before I was born. My older brother remembers some of them.
So she was just working.
She was working, always working.
Did she go to the Rosenwald School here?
The old Rosenwald, the white
Yes.
building, which is now on Cherokee Street.
Right.
She did attend that. But she only got a 3rd grade education. Like my aunt says, when she got married early, she had her first 2 kids by her first husband. And after she divorced him, she married my father, and then she had 6 kids, children by my father. So you can say I'm number 6 of the 8,
Okay.
but I guess I'm number what, 4? No, I'm number, yes, you know what I'm saying.
Right, 4. With the 4th of your father.
Yes.
So when she worked for the Kenos, was it just like in the daytime that she worked?
Yes, I mean, she would work for them in the daytime, and if they called her for a special occasion, a party or anything, she would go to work whenever they wanted her to work. And they had to pick her up, or my brother would take her because she never drove.
Oh, really?
No, my father either.
Really?
No, they had never had driver
How
license.
did he get down to Rocky?
He had friends that worked there, and he would pay them, buy gas.
Carpool.
Carpool. Yes. They never had a license to drive. And it was hard on us as children because I played sports, even at North Cobb and Autry. But the parents of my teammates, I remember one particular, Mr. Pittner, James Pittner. After practice, he would bring me home, even then. And I would never forget him for that. And his daughter, Sally, we're still in touch now because we graduated from high school together. And we meet at reunions when we have them.
Okay, so you would have started at Roberts School then?
I started at Roberts School, Roberts Elementary, until 7th grade, and then integration. And I had to go to Autry.
You say you had to go?
I had to go.
So you would have preferred staying?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
How far did Roberts go through the 8th grade?
It went through the 8th grade, but
until
1968, and I had to go to Autry.
Okay. So you didn't go under freedom of choice?
No, I did not.
Total integration?
Yes, total integration. Roberts Elementary, and we were taught by, all black teachers who understood the circumstances. They were smart. They came from Atlanta and Marietta and Kennesaw to teach us. During that time, we were taught more pride, being more prideful. Not prideful, but to have more pride in who we are than we did after we started integration. And I don't know where you ever heard that. We say sometimes integration was the worst thing that ever happened to a black person because we lost who we are.
Yes, I have heard that.
Yes. And some, it's okay, but we did lose some of our own independence. We worked. We knew we had to work for what we had, and now it seems more like we're given too much, and you don't appreciate things when they are given to you if you don't work for them.
What would you call it? A sheltering environment at Robert's school? Shelter from the larger world?
Oh, shelter. No, they taught us how to deal with the larger world.
Okay. Yeah.
Not shelter.
Okay.
No, independence, and hard work
Mm-hmm.
for what it was that you was going to go into.
Have to work twice as hard.
Yes, always.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Now, Tim Houston, I think, must have gone through there about the same time you did.
He's younger than I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Not much.
I think about 4 years.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay.
4 or 5 years.
Well, I think he had a similar experience that he wasn't really happy to go to. I guess he went to Ackworth Elementary.
Yes, he did.
And wasn't really happy about that.
Right.
change.
I'm serious. And of course we had to face adversity when we first got there.
Mhm.
I didn't have a lot of negative things happen, but there were some.
Uh-huh.
There were some, but there was also some who was my friends from the time I got there to even now. I still have some friends. Miriam Williams, she used to work here at the city of Ackworth. I see her now. We're still just as friendly as we were when I was in high school. Yes. So, but my mother always taught us. She said, never think that anybody is better than you are, because they're not. God made us all. But don't ever think that you're any better than anyone else either. And that keep a balance in your life. So if everyone could think like that, I think the world would be a better place for us to live in. We're all the same to God.
Yep. Anybody that goes to church ought to know that.
And
shouldn't
they should, you would think. But you know what happened even with the church folks back in the day. So we don't have to go that.
Miss Bates said something in the interview about when there were blackouts during World War II, which is, of course, before your time, but about your mother hearing the N word when it was too dark to see who was saying it.
Right.
While she was coming home from work.
Right.
People shouting insults at her, I guess.
Right. Oh, well, I mean, we had that at North Cobb and Autry also. Not so much at North Cobb, but I was at Autry 2 years, a year and a half.
Did it happen when you were playing basketball?
Not on the team.
I mean, people.
Oh,
in the
going out to
audience.
other places. Yes, to
In the
other
stands.
schools. Yes. I was the only black female on the basketball team at one point, and there was one black male from our community. And we would be on the bus, and we would sit together because, we wasn't sure. And so they grouped us together as boyfriend and girlfriend because we was only 2 blacks on the teams.
Wow.
Yes. But that was okay, too.
Was there a basketball team at Roberts?
No.
No.
That was street ball at Roberts. We learned street ball
So first time you could play on a team was at Autry?
at Autry Middle School,
Okay.
junior high at the time.
What did you play? What
I was
position?
forward.
Okay.
Yes.
And pretty good basketball
I
player. from what
I think so.
understand.
Yes.
So,
I have a picture. She has a picture of me in my basketball uniform. Yes. And it's been, 51 years now since high school.
Well, years passed. don't they?
And yes, they do. I can't believe it.
And then North Cobb High School, you were still on the basketball
Yes, I
team
played throughout
all the way through?
through North Cobb, yes.
Okay.
I guess in a day and time like this, I would have got a scholarship, but I didn't even try back then for a scholarship.
Did you score a lot of points?
Average.
Okay.
Average, yes.
Okay.
I wasn't I was like number 6, the 6th man.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Good defensive player?
Yes, my sister was better defensive-wise. Deborah, she was better defensive-wise than me, but yes.
So you graduated from high school in
Yes.
'71,
Yes.
and I think y'all had a reunion
We
year
had the
ago, didn't you?
50th reunion. I didn't make it to that. I went to previous ones. Something came up last year. I forgot what it was. But anyway, I'm in touch with Ernestine Roper, Godfrey, the ones who do the car shows. She and I graduated from high school together. Jimmy Daniels and some of the Owens men. So I'm in touch with several of them still.
Yeah, we interviewed some of them not too long ago.
Okay. All right.
So, okay, so you graduated from high school, it's 1971, what do you do then?
Well, my aunt, Lorraine Worthy, she was working at Kennestone Hospital. She had a good reputation there. So
Okay.
she got me on at Kennestone Hospital, where I worked for a year in labor and delivery.
Okay. Oh,
Yes, I saw one of my nieces born while I was working there.
labor has two different meanings, doesn't it?
It does, labor and delivery, yes. And then I went to work at another place off on Old 41 until a friend of mine called me and said she was leaving C.W. Matthews Contracting Company just across the street from where I was working. And because they had to keep the quota, they had to hire another black person. She wanted, yes, they had to hire
Because they were doing government work? Is that what?
government work, yes, and they had to have another black person to come and work there. So she called me, and it was just going for an interview, and I was given the job.
What did you think about that?
It was great. That put me on the road to knowing what I really wanted to do in life. I was in accounts payable and receivable, and I stayed there 9 years.
Okay.
And I had a good track record there, and probably would have stayed, but they was not paying a whole lot of money.
Oh, really?
No, not for me. And I had two brothers already, military veterans, working at the post office. And I knew how much money they was making. So I'm saying, I'm going to get me some of that money. So I applied for the United States Postal Service test, made a 95.5. But during that time, veterans had preference. So it took 3 years for me to even get hired, making that score. But they finally hired me, and I stayed there 25 plus years. I was the first black female supervisor in Marietta. So I just kept on going. I tried to go to Washington, D.C. For one of the big headquarters jobs, but didn't quite make it. But that's okay. While I was there, I met a very nice woman who the younger ladies there didn't really like her, but she became my best buddy. And it seems like everywhere I went, God always had an angel waiting on me to help push me farther than I thought I would ever go. Because she invited me to come and go to Kennesaw State University with her during lunch hour.
Oh.
And that's how I decided I was going to go to
So
college.
you were working full-time but taking a lunch break?
Taking a lunch break, going to college. And we did that for about a year, and she stopped. She got, she did whatever she needed to do. But anytime I start something, I will always complete it. And I started going at night. And it took me 5 years at night. 1978 is when I started. And I went there and graduated. And I finished my courses in 1983. I got married in 1980. But then after I finished my courses, graduation was not till the spring. So I was 6 months pregnant with my son, my only biological child. Walked down the aisle, 6 months pregnant, got my Bachelor Administration degree at Kennesaw State University.
I'm sure I had to be there for that ceremony.
I bet you was.
So 78, we were just beyond the junior college stage and starting to do upper level courses.
Right.
If you got through in 5 years, that was amazing speed while you were working full time.
Full-time work. My husband was working at night at the time, so that helped.
Mm-hmm.
That I can go and come, as I please.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 5 years, and I had my son.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed at home for 6 months from the United States Postal Service. I started there in '83,
Mm-hmm.
right before I got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took 6 months off, had my child, went back to work,
Mm-hmm.
and worked there for, like I said, 25 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
They offered voluntary early retirement when I was 55. I had 25 years of service, and I took it because Postal Service had gotten too hard. It was like you was against a rock and a hard place for management anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted you to do things to mistreat individuals in order to get the goals met. And I felt like I could get them met without being,
Talking about
mistreating.
the people that work
Yes,
under you.
yes, and that just I
Pushing
could not
too
do it.
hard.
Pushing them too hard. So when the time came, I said it's time for me to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I left there, went to work for the Census Bureau for about a month doing the 2010 census, and I got called to work at Cobb County School District. And I said I was going to take that temporarily, but I wound up staying there 10 years, and it was a blessing for me.
What were you doing with the school
I was a
district?
bus monitor on special needs school buses, and that was the most rewarding time of my life, to be there with those children who some said has a handicap or disabled. Those are some of the smartest kids you ever want to meet. They really are.
So the school system would send buses to their houses to pick them up? Or?
Oh, yes. Just
Okay.
like they do regular kids. They call them the short buses.
Uh-huh.
They would send them, and we would pick up elementary school, high school, and middle school, just like the rest. But we had to go to their door, not a designated spot.
Right.
Yes.
Couldn't leave them at a designated
Right.
spot.
We had to go to
So
the door.
How many kids would be special needs? That
You would be surprised in
Wow.
Cobb County.
Uh-huh.
You would really be surprised because I never thought that we had that many special need kids. I don't really know, but it's like 2,000, 2,500.
So it's a lot of drivers that you were supervising.
A lot of drivers, yes, yes,
They have special training on how to deal with special needs
yes,
children?
yes, and depend on the severity of their condition. Sometimes nurses would ride with them. Yes,
Okay.
some had IVs, some was in wheelchairs. It just depended on their condition.
Why do you think you got that position? Were you having the experience before with the special needs?
Not special needs, but I had one biological child, but before he was born, I was taking in children and raising children in my household. They was relatives, but I said I'd help raise 12 children that they are all like my children to me. And even when my son got in high school, he started bringing young men to our house to live with us in order for them to make it through high school. And they are my sons. I can say I have 5 sons, my son's best friends, even today, that are like my sons. And one was in Chicago. He moved back here, and he got a job as director of pharmacy at Emory Hospital. One was living in New York, and his mother's still in New York, but he came back here to live and bought a house with his family. They're my sons. They all are. And I have nieces and nephews I raised, and they all feel just like my children. Yes.
So 10 years you worked with the Marietta schools, Cobb County schools.
Yes.
And
I retired in 2020
Okay.
when my first grandchild was born, biological grandchild was born.
So 2020 is not just 2 years ago. No?
Yes.
Okay.
And I stayed, I kept her most of the time while her mother and father worked.
Now,
And
your son's Vance,
yes,
and then the granddaughter's
Summer.
Summer is 2 years old.
Yeah, she's 2 years old and she's in school now, in daycare.
Okay. Okay. Um, um, you also went back to school for
Oh, yes.
some theological degrees.
Even before I went to Kennesaw State University, I got my certificate from Barbizon School of Modeling.
Oh, I didn't forgot about that.
Yeah, I wanted to be a model. I felt like I was people told me I was a good-looking girl growing up, slim and trim.
Yeah.
So I went to modeling school, got my certificate in modeling, did a couple of shows, but it wasn't for me. Then I went to Kennesaw State University, and that was it up until I turned 63.
Okay.
And retired. I like, God, okay, what is it you want me to do now? And I heard his voice say, I want you to learn more of me. And at the time, I was dating someone who was a former pastor, and he wanted to go to school too. So we enrolled at Antioch Bible College right here in Ackworth. The main campus was right in Cartersville, so it was very convenient. So I started going there, and because I already had a degree, I only had to take 30 hours to get another bachelor's degree from their college, Bachelor of Theology. Then I went another 30 hours, got my master's degree in Christian counseling, and I had to do a 75-page thesis. Then I went another 30 hours and got my doctorate degree in Christian education and had to do a 150-page dissertation. And then I went another 30 hours, another 150-page dissertation, and got my PhD in Christian education. And I'm like, Lord, what in the world am I doing? He said, just keep on doing what I tell you to do. And then I went to my pastor one day and I said, God has called me to preach the gospel. And so now I'm an ordained minister at Zion Hill, right here in Ackworth, 158-year-old Baptist church. Praise God.
Talk about Zion Hill. You've been in that church all your life.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Like I said, I started off as a Sunday school student. Kept going, was Sunday school teacher, Sunday school superintendent, and at the age of 19, I became the church clerk for almost 40 years. I kept the records. We did a directory. I think I was under probably 7 or 8 pastors that came through as the church clerk. And I remember writing in a book, Purposeful Life, once in 2004, I believe it was, that God is going to move me out of that position. And God moved me out of that position because he had something else for me to do. So in 2009, I was no longer the church clerk, but by 2018, he called me to preach. So he was just preparing me.
How often do you preach?
At the church, maybe once every 2 or 3 months. But I also on a Zoom call that I do meditations with women. I'm also on a Sunday afternoon, every Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We're on the nursing home ministry that I do every Sunday. Don't preach every Sunday, but I'm on there with the other ministers. Either I'll do the scripture or do the prayer, preside, or do the sermon. And actually, I'm doing the sermon this Sunday at 2 o'clock on a WebEx call with the nursing homes. Yes, and I already got my sermon ready, and it's called Discover Your Purpose. And that's what I'm doing even now, still discovering my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
For sure.
But I do want to mention my mother,
Yeah.
another thing. She always wanted a book about the black community in Ackworth. So after she died, I got with the author of a book, Kennesaw Marietta, Patrice Shelton Lassiter, and we did a book about the black community here in Ackworth called A Place to Remember.
Right.
So I'm very proud of everything that God have allowed me to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I understand you helped collect photographs for the
Kennesaw State
the Doyle
University
Hill
Archives,
yeah,
yes,
mm-hmm.
yes. They are on the archives at KSU
Yeah.
forever. So if this is the reason why God kept me in Ackworth, I'm thankful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
At Zion Hill, about how large is the church now?
Well, you know, it had not come back since COVID.
Yeah.
We may have 30, 40 people in the church right now. Because we're still not doing it the normal way. We only spending 45 minutes to 50 minutes in church.
Really?
Yes, no, it's not like it used to be.
No.
Maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. But like I was on a call last night, and the young lady so eloquently said, the church is not the building. We are the church. And I think God wanted us to understand that. Don't go to the church thinking that's where you're going to find me. You're supposed to take me with you. I'm supposed to be with you all the time, not in the building. Yes.
Well, talk about Ackworth a little bit and maybe how it's changed over time. You grew up in a very segregated society. Did you, you obviously knew the Keno kids, I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
Did you know, did you ever play with white kids growing up, or was it
Growing
totally
up,
segregated?
segregated. Growing up,
Totally.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah, the Kenos, I used to babysit for them, you know, their great-grandchildren. But no, we never played with any white children growing up. I hardly ever came across the railroad tracks
Really?
growing up. I mean, my mother would bring us to Eaton's, to Mr. Green's, Allen's 5 and 10 cent store, you know, to purchase items. But we would go back across the street. And that was okay. We had a big community. You know, we call Fifth Ward and Campbell Hill, which was School Street and Taylor Street, and that was our family, and that's where we stayed. We had a lot going on. We had fun growing up because we was outside playing, making games, hopscotch, you know, volleyball, playing softball, whatever we had to do to keep busy. And of course go to church. So we didn't know we was missing anything. We had no idea what all was out there for us.
So you go to the Legion Theater, or
I never did.
you never did?
No, I never did.
Which it was segregated in its seating.
Right. They had to go around the back up to the balcony, my aunt tells me. And we used to go to Tanyard Creek to swim in the lake because, you know, we did not come to the beach.
Okay.
Right. So, but we didn't know what we was missing or that we had anything we was missing until we grew up and was able to mingle. I'm like, okay, that's what this is.
Yeah. And of course, the black population is, I guess, much bigger in Ackworth now.
On the outskirts of Ackworth. It's
Yeah.
a lot smaller on my side of town.
Over near around School
Yes,
Street, yeah.
yes.
That's all changed.
That's all changed. And, you know, progress is good. Progress is good. But I do miss all of the houses along the way.
Right.
So my house, where I live, and my aunt, who you're going to interview next, we live side by side. And then there's 2 new homes that was built on the other side of me. And then there's maybe 3 more black homes, 3 or 4 more black homes,
Mhm.
and in Bethel AME Church,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
As far as that side of
Mhm.
Cherokee Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 1885, it's sitting right there in our community.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Right where the community used to be.
used to start right
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. It's sad in a way, isn't
It is sad in a way, but what can you do?
it?
I mean, people was not forced to sell their homes,
Uh-huh.
their family homes, but a lot of people moved away,
Uh-huh.
and left their homes, and their parents died, so they
Uh-huh.
sold out.
Yeah. You talked about the black neighborhoods now on the outskirts of the city.
Right.
So how integrated is Ackworth today? Or is it still like mostly blacks on one street and mostly whites on another? Or is it more?
Where you have
Mixed
a
together.
group, like say 4 or 5 houses
Uh-huh.
of blacks on School Street,
Uh-huh.
it's no longer Moon Street, it's no longer Bell Street.
Yeah.
All of that is School Street now,
Uh-huh.
except for where the senior citizen
Uh-huh.
facility is.
Uh-huh.
I think that's called Timothy Cole.
Right.
And then on Taylor Street, it's
Uh-huh.
only 4 or 5 black homes over there.
Uh-huh.
That's it. The park is over there, Logan Park.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, we don't know the plan of God.
Mm-hmm.
Only He knows the plan He has for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ironic because Logan Park, my maternal grandmother was a Logan.
Oh. Okay.
A lot of people don't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just look up and say, Lord, you know what you're doing. And then we have to trust Him,
Uh-huh.
and no matter what's going on in our
Uh-huh.
lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Main Street in Ackworth's a lot more active than it used to be.
Yes.
Do you go to the restaurants on Main Street nowadays? Or?
Not as much. Not as much as people coming into Ackworth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love 1885.
Mhm.
I've been there 4 or 5 times.
Mhm.
I've been to hearings.
Mhm.
And we do have a class reunion meeting every Monday night.
Mm.
Not every Monday night. I think it's either the first or the second Monday. My class meet over there. And they have invited me, but I just, I haven't gone.
Oh, by the way, I meant to ask you earlier, you were on the Ackworth Historic Preservation Commission years ago.
Yes, with Abbey Parks.
Uh-huh.
And I did what I needed to do there. I ran for city council in 1996.
Did you?
Yes, I did. And now I'm on the Development Authority Board. I just recently joined,
Mm-hmm.
was invited and joined that.
Mhm.
And we had a meeting actually last night.
Uh-huh.
No, today is Friday. Wednesday night we had a meeting,
Uh-huh.
the first meeting on the Development Authority Board.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I'm still doing things,
Uh-huh.
still open to whatever it is that God has for me to do,
Mm-hmm.
to help bring recognition, hopefully, and positive insight to the community of Ackworth.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a great community overall, for me.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of people can say Ackworth is a town that people love each other.
Uh-huh. Good. Well, now, I know you were involved with the Cobb County branch of the NAACP.
I did that too.
Talk
Yeah.
about that.
It was just in a time that I needed something to do. It was at the postal service. I had recently divorced, and so I went and served there for a number of years under 2 or 3 presidents.
Uh-huh.
I was the membership chair there,
Okay.
and during my time there, the membership increased,
Uh-huh.
and I am a lifetime member of the Cobb County NAACP.
Well, now, would Deanne Bonner have
The-
been one of the
She,
presidents?
yes, I can't think of the lady.
Oscar Freeman. maybe?
Oscar Freeman, Jerry Dodd,
Uh-huh.
Deanne Bonner, and there was another lady, I can't even think of her name, Sandra something. I can't think of her name now, but yes. And we did, and I have a picture, the conferences they held, or the banquets.
Mm-hmm.
They were bringing key people,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a picture of my son with Clifton Davis,
Okay.
the actor,
Uh-huh.
one year, and they were bringing John Amos from Good Times, and they were bringing people that we always saw on TV.
Mm-hmm.
to talk to us, to do the speech, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And it was always good to go and listen to people we had never met, otherwise.
Yeah, good. Now, what is the Black Ackworth Community Homecomings?
There's no longer.
No longer?
No longer, because we don't have enough people to
Come home?
come home. Yes, a lot of people have died out. The old timers, I would say, the older generation is, because we used to have certain people that would come home during that time specifically for the homecoming. I think the last time we had it, I used to be the president of that. And I think the last time we had that was probably 2014. And then that was it.
Wow.
I try to get other people to, take over, whatever you want to make it better. But they would complain, but they would not do anything about it. So I said, okay, that my time is over. And when I stopped doing it, Sister Turleen Clemens, she moved away. They sold her house. She moved to Hiram. Helen Hill, she's in Hiram. The key people that used to help, they're no longer here.
Yeah. Well, what have we not talked about that you would like to talk about in this interview?
Well, I guess the only thing now is, what are we going to do for our younger generation? I'm good. I can say I'm good. I've lived my life, and I'm still living it. But I want the younger generations, to understand that we have to love each other. We can't keep, being divided. The saying said, together we stand, divided we fall. And we see the fall of the United States of America right now. Man, I would never have thought that the United States of America would be in the condition it's in right now. And someone said, pastor said to me one day, she said, we used to go to foreign countries to be missionaries to them. We need them to come to us now. That's the condition of the United States of America. We need missionaries over here witnessing to us about the goodness of God, because we've lost not everybody, we know that. But a lot of people, especially the ones that leaders in office that was in the White House, how do we put up with stuff like that? How do we allow things like that to happen? We left God out of the courthouse. We told him to get out of the schoolhouse, so he left. So that's why we're in the condition we're in. We need to get him back. In God we trust. And I think that's what happened to us. We need to go back on our knees and pray to God to come back to the United States of America, because we put him out.
Okay. Well, maybe that would be a good place to end the interview at that point, unless you want to add anything.
I'm good, just for us to be praying for our future generations.
Yeah.